So, in the midst of this SAA strike and what currently looks like an insoluble impasse between management and Labour, what kind of interventions are required to find middle ground in Labour disputes of this nature? I mean, what can businesses do to manage stakeholders to prevent potentially business-destroying conflicts? Well, joining me now to give us a little insight is business consultant Angela du Plessis. Angela, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Nice to be here, thank you.
All right, so, you know, when we get to a strike situation, a lot of stuff isn't new and a lot of things have happened before to get to that point. I just wonder what kind of things, interventions, conversations even, should have been happening before workers feel that they've got no alternative but to go on strike.
Yes, I know a lot of people do think about strikes as the last resort, and the Labour Relations Act does as well. And my understanding is that this is a protected strike, so I'm assuming that they've had a series of conciliation meetings at the CCMA, because in order to go on an protected strike, which means no work, no pay, but you can't lose your job, you have to have a certificate of non-conciliation. So there would have been a number of talks to date, but I think that there are some socio-political and economic stressors that have made this almost an inevitable consequence.
This seems almost like war when I'm listening to particularly the trade unions and some of the comments being made by executives. Is labour negotiations, wage disputes always so adversarial?
Well, let's put it this way, Peter, in context. I think a lot of labour relations itself, the system, is very adversarial. And I think let's bear in mind that most large companies go into some kind of wage negotiation talks on an annual basis, and the majority of them don't end in strikes. But I think there have been a number of factors here that have made both parties feel quite desperate and frustrated with the way things are going. And I mean, the way that management sees this, and a lot of, say, labour lawyers and commentators out there, and the way the unions see it would be completely different.
So if it was one employee and you have a fight, by and large they say this relationship is irreparably damaged, they give you a payout and you go away. But when it's your entire workforce, how does one even begin to start healing wounds and getting people back to some kind of relationship?
Well, there are people who specialise in this, private mediators, who would go in and have to do some kind of trust building after an incident like this, or any strike. I mean, whether it's a short or a long strike, there is a lot of relationship building and trust building to do again, and sometimes it's pretty hard.
Yeah. You've done a lot of work at places like the CCMA, and I just wonder, when people come to a desk to discuss, it seems that they're quite hard with the position that they come in with. And I'm listening to the unions here, and they're saying, we will collapse this airline if we have to. You must listen to us.
Yes.
How do you
deal with that? Okay, well, I'll explain some of it to you. These parties, for good reason, I guess, or for understandable reasons, are taking a very positional stance. We who are taught and teach negotiation skills, you say you've got to get beyond positions to needs and interests. So what really are the concerns of the workers? It's job security, it's keeping up with inflation, etc., etc. But at the moment, because of the nature of this particular dispute, it has taken on a lot of complexity, and you're right, a lot of positional bargaining or positional stances.
Do you find in your experience that sometimes the numbers are understood or misunderstood, so that, you know, a guy says, but management has got an increase, we haven't, therefore, and that in the end the whole organisation may collapse, but they take a position and that's it?
Yes.
I'm trying to get to the understanding of the issues, perhaps beyond just my salary this month?
Yes, yes. Well, look, in my experience of doing many wage disputes while at the CCMA, every management team would start by telling workers that they're doing very badly and that there is no money for an increase. And the workers would say things like, well, why are there 20 new Mercedes-Benz in the parking lot? And the other thing I wanted to say is that I think in this dispute and the ESCOM wage dispute, I think it was last year, management starts off at 0%, and that normally doesn't go well. That's a bit like a red rag to a bull. And the unions and the workers will say that you're bargaining in bad faith. And you know, so, I mean, these things look as if they're insoluble, but these parties will find a resolution. When? I don't know what the nature of the resolution will be, but they are going to have to eventually go beyond their positions into interests and needs-based negotiations.
So how does a business avoid ever getting to this point? What sort of things should they typically have in place and on an ongoing basis so that you know, you don't see yourself in a situation where a business could actually collapse because of a labour dispute?
Well, I mean, the larger companies, the unionised companies, they have shop stewards, they have regular meeting with the union officials, they have regular talks, they try and keep their pulse on the sort of temperature amongst the workers. But I must just say, Peter, that in some disputes, and as a CCMA commissioner now looking at disputes, I can almost, a lot of other people can as well, see where things are going to end, because sometimes there is a mediatable dispute, and other times you just know that the parties have to go to the wall, so to speak, in order to introduce that set of dynamics that'll maybe find a more creative way forward. But companies deal with this on an ongoing basis. Look, the conflict between management and workers is inherent. It just has to be managed.
What's your gut feeling about SAA?
Oh, I'm just not close enough to the dispute to make an informed thing. But I mean, I think like all of this, there has to be a resolution. And good luck to the people who put their minds to helping them find that.
Yeah, all right, okay. So a lot of hard work there, but by and large, most times if you can get off a solid position, a firm position, you can find some resolution.
Well, funny enough, even when parties have a big ding-dong battle like this, if they interrogate below the iceberg what's under the table, they often find that they have more common interests and needs, while they don't seem to have apparent common positions.
All right, Angela, thanks so much indeed for coming through. Lovely chatting to you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.